Hi, folks. Here we are reviewing the comping lecture for our final stage of our assignment. So it's far less complicated slash expensive to make design changes to a comp of a web product than it is to make changes after it has been developed. Developers are expensive, so if you have to go back in and edit anything once it goes live or once they're in that process, you're kind of eating up all of your costs, aka or your profits. Uh, a website comp, aka high fidelity mockup, is essentially a complete visual mockup of what a web product will look like after it goes through the web development slash coding stage. So here's where we are at with sketching. Then we're at the wireframe, and now we're at the mockup. And technically, the last stage would be coding. High fidelity mockups reflect your design choices for color schemes, layout, typography, iconography, the visuals of navigation, and the overall look and feel of the web product. At this stage, the branding of the website can really start to take shape. So these are all things that you might have thought about while you were creating, and now you get to start to apply them. A high fidelity this is a high fidelity mockup in Sketch, a different program. It's just like XD, but obviously look kind of the same, but different. So why are we creating comps? This is the most important step in the web design process. Some would argue perhaps maybe not the most important, as it gives clients and stakeholders a way, suckers, a very good idea of how the finished web and product will look like. So at this stage, there still might be edits. You still might find those hiccups. For instance, maybe it's a close button. This is in Vision where we did our toast assignment. So you can actually go in and kind of use a pencil and go ahead and mark things up like a client would do. But again, it's still much easier at that stage than it is to go straight to development and then find the little hiccups. Although this is also billable hours, it's a necessary step to ensure that what was agreed upon will be created. Clients have one last chance to make changes to the design of the site before it's sent off to be developed. Pardon me. Why create comps? So and intuitive to stakeholders. So thanks to their high fidelity comps require less context than lo-fi documents like wireframes. So stakeholders can more easily see the final product. Big sites, you generally will always review your wireframes with your client. Really, probably technically you always do. If it's a really small site, you might end up skipping a wireframe stage, to be completely honest. But for the most part, especially the way the world is going, it's much easier to jump into a wireframe stage of things, especially even just for yourself versus jumping in and focusing on pixel perfection and perfect colors. Well, you might end up with a site that doesn't really function well. So you start to reveal problems. It's one thing to have all your visuals and decisions made, but it's another to see them working together in a way close to the real thing. So comps can help reveal problems that aren't so apparent on paper. Color clashes, pardon me. Color clashes are smaller type crimes. Maybe you have a dark gray on a black background, and then once you get into, reviewing, you're like, oh, I can't really see this or read this type. All really good things to hammer out now before it gets out there. So revisions to the product may still be necessary at the stage. Once again, it's easier to make revisions now than it is when when it's coded. So the working comp file can be used. Oops. Extra used in there in the developing process as a guide to help the developer create the production version of the website. Assets and other graphics can be exported directly. For example, a sketch file as a PNG. Same thing works with XDU. They would generally be able to work straight from that XD file, and they can click through and get all of these notes. A website mockup file is useful for designers as they can get assets like hex codes and text sizes right from the file, so there's no guessing. Lots of developers will 100% admit that they are not designers. So if you just hand them something that, oh, here's what it looks like, and it's just a flat file, you'd be surprised how much they might mess up your design. Your font sizes might be too large or too small. The colors might not be perfect. Although generally the colors are because they can eye drop, but usually it comes with the placement of images, the size of fonts, etc. So they can go into that file and find the exact placement and all the sizes. 3 ways to create comps. Graphic design software. So because we are graphic designers, we generally gravitate towards the tools that we are used to and comfortable with: InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, right there. But the problem with these tools, they're not inherently created for print and render well beyond 72 dpi, so not necessary file sizes. And they also don't allow for interactions to be added like we can do, for instance, in XD. Coded mockups are certainly an efficient way to save time, as many of the coding issues for interface elements can be fixed. Bootstrap Foundation and other responsive frameworks are popular tools in this space. The issues are that it takes time to revise. It's much easier to explore design decisions in tools made for UI. I'm sorry, I keep kind of having these yawning hiccups here. So UI apps, obviously, these are the winners. You guys are getting used to XD now, and I think you're already kind of growing to love it and realize how easy it is. So tools that are created specifically for user interface exist in abundance now. So Sketch, XD, UXPin, Figma. I'd probably say Sketch, Figma, and XD are the leaders in the industry. These tools are focused on the web designer and render in a web space. In many cases, CSS information. So CSS is your style sheets. I'm sure you learned that in your coding class. Pixel dimension and interactive elements all can be extracted from the developer straight here. So involving a developer, usually a nerdy guy in a wood panel basement. I'm just kidding. Work with the developer on interactive elements, so animations, interface, elements, etc. All need to be defined at this point. So speaking with a developer can help understand the mechanics of this code. I'm so sorry. While knowing coding basics are essential to a UX and a UI designer, speaking with a developer may circumvent any issues with designed elements that cannot be created with code. So there's lots of times that you might think something is super easy and you just put it right over here. May not be that easy, and in lots of instances may not be feasible. I've run into it, and it's really good to get that done ahead of time, because if you say, you tell your client, oh, I want to have, or you design it with a picture and text here, they approve it, they love it, they've fallen in love, they can't wait to see it live. And then you talk with your developer and they say, there's no chance we can do that. Now you kind of got to go back to the client and say, I'm really sorry, I know you fell in love with this, but we have to change it. So keeping that communication open, it's always good to use developers that you're comfortable with, where you feel you can have that really strong interaction with. Use your resources. So when tasked with creating a high fidelity mockup, a junior design can easily be overwhelmed with questions like, how do I indicate a drop down? What color will the background of the nav bar be? And what does an accordion interface look like? So looking to other websites in the category can be helpful when defining content and layout, but they don't necessarily help with the UI elements themselves. Fortunately, many UX UI designers have been faced with these dilemmas several times over, and solutions exist on the web with helpful examples and downloadable assets. We've already gotten used to those assets, which are so helpful, but we always know we got to still make them our own. So lots of resources out there, freebies, bug, what you just want to make sure. So here's a little screenshot. This is going to filter things through for PSD file. Making sure if you guys are using Adobe XD, that you are specifically downloading elements that are for Adobe XD. So app resources for XD. This is for Sketch, that's not going to help you. XD Guru, this one's going to help you. Lots of other ones there. Essentially, a quick Google search will help you. It's important to nail down as many details in the user interface as possible with your comps. Once all design and content decisions are made, the comps are created and signed off on. Then the process of creating an interactive prototype on the site can begin. Granted, lots of times, like we have done, a prototype has been done in the wireframe stage of things. It's really good to get those details ironed out again before you start focusing on beautiful colors. That prototype is really going to make sure that the functionality of your site is bang on.